Most common setups that you're gonna probably encounter when you're turkey hunting is a roost setup. Turkeys gobble a lot off the roost. Majority of the gobbling is done on the roost. So you can really hear them from a good distance, get up somewhere high, find you a turkey to go set up on. And if you get set up on that turkey before he flies down, is to try to mimic a turkey in a tree, and she's flying down, she wants some company, and you're trying to talk him into coming there. The way I do that is typically I always have a wing handy, and I'll do muted tree yelps. She's getting more excited as it gets more daylight, and you're just trying to set that scene as there's company there waiting for him, and you're trying to get him on the ground. I'll do some of that now. There's no reason to hurry yourself when you're talking to a turkey. They work on turkey time. They may do one set of tree yelps and they may wait 5-6 minutes. They may actually be talking back and forth, and especially if you can mimic 2 or more hens on one call. Maybe you've got a slate call. Maybe you can do it like I just did on a mouth call. But if you can sound like 2 hens going back and forth, you have a reason to call more because you're trying to mimic 2 different turkeys calling back and forth. That's going to give the gobbler the impression that he's got more company over the ridge, and it's probably going to set a better scene for him to come join you. That's the way I typically address a roost situation. I mimic a couple different turkeys on the limb, we fly down, and hopefully he does his part. All right, now we're going to talk about like a fly down sequence and something you may do early in the morning. Turkeys on the limb, one of the things that I always have in my vest is a wing. This is just the last segment of a gobbler that we've taken, this wing. It's easy enough, it's got a joint. This one hasn't even hardened up yet, this is a fresh one. Super helpful to have one of these in your vest, because if anybody's been around turkeys long enough, you know that not every hen that flies down out of the limb, off the limb gives a fly down cackle, but they do make sounds with their wings every time they fly down. So this is something that's, if you want to be realistic, you don't have to do a fly down cackle. It's not one of the easiest calls to replicate, but a wing is very easy to use and utilize, and it's obviously doesn't take up a lot of room in your vest. But a lot of times I will start with tree yelps and something muted, something turkeys that are waking up, sound something like. And then you can definitely, as it gets closer to fly down time, and this is a tactic that you can use on henned up turkeys and turkeys that are roosted with hens, because a gobbler's antsy. He's ready to get on the ground. He's ready to get started with his day for obvious reasons. So what we want to do is get him on the ground first. If he's on the ground first, you have the ability to manipulate him. Once he has that hen in his eyes and once she's down there beside him, things can get considerably more difficult. So using a wing, using some tree talk, convincing him, setting the stage, getting him on the ground before the hens around him get on the ground gives you a chance. So basically what I would do is some tree talk like I just did. You don't have to do a fly down cackle. You can just cluck maybe a few times in succession pretty quick. Smash some limbs or some trees that are around you to really give the effect of a turkey navigating through limbs. Smash the leaves around you, and you basically just told him that he's already got some game that's on the ground, and he will a lot of times very quickly thereafter come and join you, and you may have the ability to kill that turkey before his hens ever hit the ground and cause you big issues. Okay, we want to talk about a midday scenario. We're walking through the woods. I, a lot of times, use a turkey call for a midday locator. I don't use a lot of crow calls and that kind of thing to get a shot gobble. I'm usually drifting through the woods, and before I will ever put the call in my mouth, I'm looking around trying to figure out where the roll in the hill is, where I can get to where a turkey will only see me from 35 yards, where I can use a bend in the road. I'm always looking for a setup position before I hit the call. The biggest thing you can do as a turkey hunter to prepare yourself is expect a turkey to gobble every time you call. And a lot of times once I have my little setup, once I have a thick spot, a big, good tree, and when you're doing this, you always want to start soft because you can always pick up the volume, but it's impossible to ever hit rewind on that kind of situation. So when I start, I will pick out my spot that I want to sit in case it all goes down, and I'll start with this. And I'll give that a second. He's thinking about it. He may have just raised a hair up on the back of his neck. He's looking, he's thinking about it. And that's if he doesn't gobble, I'll raise the volume just a little bit more. Something like that. And if he still doesn't gobble, in my opinion, a turkey's still listening to me. It's my job to try to convince him to crack one off so I know what to do. And so then step number 3. And then hopefully you get a turkey to gobble. If not, stroll on down the ridge and check the next one. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about yelping and the different kinds of yelping. Start with a plain yelp, which is just a turkey wandering through the woods. A lot of times it can be a contented sound, but she is looking for company. She's always looking to see how everybody's doing. It's going to sound like this. There's not a lot of emotion in it. It's kind of blah, it's kind of bland. A lot of times it'll be a single note yelp, a 2-note yelp. It's not a big long sequence. It's not got a lot of emotion. And like I said, it's just somebody wandering down the road saying, hey, how are you? Good morning. The next thing is you can kind of step it up, put more emotion, and that's when a excited yelp. And that's a hen that's looking for company. She's heard another hen in the distance, maybe even a competitor, maybe even, you know, a foe that she's wanting to express some, you know, aggression toward. And that's going to sound more like. Got a lot more bass, a lot more body. I mean, she's really wanting the sound to reach out there. She's really showing some aggression or some pleading aspects. The next one I want to hit is the assembly yelp, and it's kind of hand in hand with the excited yelp. It's meant to reach a long distance. The difference in the assembly and the excited yelp or the plain yelp is oftentimes the length. You're talking a lot of times about a boss hen is a lot of times in the fall, but not exclusively. But it's just a lot more notes. It's going to drag out there a bit longer. She's really pleading. She's really wanting to make sure everybody hears her because she's trying to assemble her flock and get started on the day a lot of times. Couple different variations there, but it is a sound that really just is looking to carry a great distance and get everybody's attention. She wants to go herd. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is one of the fun ones. It's cutting. Cutting of an excited hen is always a crowd favorite at the competitions, and it's also a very effective call when you're in the woods. It's an elevated excitement. It reaches a long distance. It's used to strike turkeys which you don't even know are there. And it can really be a game changer when you have a turkey that's kind of on the fence. If you can really perform the call efficiently and do it at the right times to really just convince him to that you're the real deal. And we'll demonstrate some of that here. And when it comes to cutting, a lot of times people get really mixed up in the speed of cutting, and they want to cut fast and all of this, and it's completely not necessary. The tone of the cut and the spacing of the cut and a start and stop, in my opinion, is the most important part, and being able to perform it on demand. Cutting is basically just short burst of air over the latex. Start with the top, and should still have a top and a bottom. You have that high end, and then you drop your tongue, or you take the pressure off the latex and let the ears of that latex float so that you can get that rasp, so that you really have a whipping sound, and that's cutting. All right, we want to talk about a little bit more of a contented type sound, and that's Cluck and Purin is obviously the king of contented type sounds. And usually one of the more difficult calls to master on a mouth call. It can be done several different ways. A lot of people gargle in their throat, and a lot of people flutter their tongue, and some people even flutter their lips. I'm going to demonstrate two of those right now. You can. I'm going to demonstrate the throat gargling method and the tongue fluttering method. The difference in those is, I don't know. You be the judge. That's with your tongue. And that's with your throat. Obviously, it's both a purring. You can also throw in those wits and whines that you hear me doing. It just comes as second nature. The pips and the clucks and everything, it just adds more personality to the clucking and purring. It sounds like a turkey walking through the woods. A lot of times scratching in the leaves and that kind of thing really sets the stage. But clucking and purring is really a contented type call, and it's a good closing call. It's one of those calls that can really make the difference when the turkey hangs up just out of sight, just over the rolling a hill. You can scratch in the leaves, do some clucking and purring, and really sell the situation and convince him to come in for a closer look. All right, what we're going to talk about next is the Flydown cackle, something that's used obviously when turkeys come off the limb, but it's used oftentimes if there's a lot of aggression, a lot of talkative, early in the season when hens are talking back and forth, there's a lot of vocabulary being thrown around, and you've got a heightened sense of excitement before they come off that limb. And when she pitches off, a lot of times she'll give a big, long, loud cackle. It can really set the stage as far as, getting a gobbler off the limb, getting him on the ground, and getting him ability to call him in before he gets before you get too much competition around you. And it goes something like this. And essentially, you're just a hen on the limb, and she's bursting off. There's a sense of insecurity there. She don't know what she's fixing to encounter, so she's kind of coming off and going down, and that's kind of what you're telling him is you're on the ground, you're ready for action. One of the things that you can often do to roost a turkey, which is kind of can be a tricky situation because not all turkeys gobble in the evenings, especially in the southeast. Get close to a roost, get somewhere tight, somewhere that you think he can hear you really well. In my opinion, you always start with owl hoots. You always start with something that's going to possibly get him to give his location away without having to use your magic trick. But sometimes a fly up cackle can really spark a turkey, give his location away so you know where to start the next morning. In my opinion, a fly up cackle is not quite as elaborate and forceful as a fly down cackle, but it is just the same kind of situation, just a rapid staccato of cutting that's going to kind of climb as it goes. And a lot of times that piercing sound, when he's already up on the limb, he's already situated for the night, that'll get him to crack one off, and you got a direction on where you want to head in the morning. Another thing that's really effective, something that I do utilize quite a bit during the spring, is Jake yelps. Something that will add that a little bit of something that everybody else may not, and it's something that really appeals to the aggressive aspect of a gobbler and the territorial aspect of a gobbler, and it's something that he's heard a lot and he knows exactly what it is. And more so, in my opinion, than the sound of the yelp, it's the cadence and the frequency. And when jakes are caulking at like a turkey drumming or something, it's really a sped up, almost like you've kicked a tire down a hill, and it starts really fast and then kind of gets momentum and goes on and finishes, and it kind of goes something like this. what I'll do is I'll wait for a turkey to gobble, or if I'm close enough to hear him drum, and I'll respond to his gobble or his drumming with Jake yelps. And that really appeals to his competitive aspect, and a lot of times that'll take that gobbler, get him to drift far enough away from his hens to give you a look to make sure that if you're a Jake, you know your place and run you off. And if he tries to do that, that often puts him in shotgun range. Next thing we want to talk about is a Kiki Run. A lot of times it's associated with a fall call, but it is definitely effective during the spring too. I use the call a lot when early season, when I'm dealing with a big flock of turkeys. You can kind of emulate a lost turkey, a young turkey, kind of appeal to that motherly instinct of a boss hen to get her to possibly steer the whole flock your way. A lot of times that's the issue that you're tackling in the early season. It goes something like this. And it's a lost young turkey a lot of times. I mean, you're trying to put that sense of urgency in a Kiki. You've got the loud whistle that's supposed to carry a long way, and it can really appeal to that motherly instinct of a boss hen and get that whole flock steered your way. Typically, if I'm going into an area blind, I haven't got a turkey roosted, and it's maybe in a foreign piece of ground, I'm gonna pick myself a high spot because I hunt with my ears a lot. That's turkey hunting, and I'm one of the guys that likes to let the world wake up around me without, you know, impacting a whole lot. But once it does get past that peak gobbling time and I feel like a turkey should be gobbling, I will owl, and I do a natural voice owl, and just to try to provoke him, but typically right before I walk off the ridge to go to plan B. And the owl sounds something like this. And I typically start with just a short sequence like that, because if a turkey does gobble, you don't want to be in the middle of some elaborate owl rendition and miss the direction on where he's gobbling. So if that doesn't work, maybe I'll do the whole who cooks for you. The frequency of that, a lot of times, the rhythm of that, a lot of times will strike a turkey. Typically, if I do that a couple times, I'll do the scream of an owl before. This is typically right before I walk off the ridge and go to plan B. But if he doesn't gobble at that, then I'm typically on to plan B.